Did Elvis Presley really record a song about a shrimp? Why did he get a songwriting credit for a ballad written during the Civil War? And how did a song that flopped in 1968 become a global #1 hit more than 30 years later? The movies were often forgettable. They were formulaic, a means to an end. But the stories behind the songs recorded for those films were often filled with conflict, genius, greed, and desperation. They tell a deeper story about a man trapped in a machine, fighting for his own artistic soul. Number 21, how did a flop become a global #1 hit 30 years later? A song recorded for an Elvis movie in 1968 made almost no impact. It failed to chart. 34 years later, in 2002, it was #1 in more than 20 countries. The movie it came from, Live a Little, Love a Little, was Elvis's 28th film. He was 33 years old and deeply unhappy with his career. The song was A Little Less Conversation. It was written by Mac Davis and Billy Strange. Davis would later write In the Ghetto and Don't Cry Daddy for Elvis. But in 1968, he was just a songwriter trying to get a cut. The original version was fast, funky, and aggressive. It was recorded in March 1968 at Western Recorders in Hollywood. The session was for the movie soundtrack. Elvis was tired of the movie songs. He wanted something with substance. A Little Less Conversation had a bite to it. The lyrics were demanding. They were about action, not just talk. This was a theme Elvis was living. He was tired of talking about making good music. He wanted to do it. The song was used in a party scene in the film. It was brief. It was forgettable. When released as a single, it was the B-side to Almost in Love. It bombed. It peaked at number 69 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a commercial failure. For Elvis, it was just another sign that his recording career was stalling. The world had moved on to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and psychedelic rock. Elvis was stuck making travelogues. But Elvis hadn't forgotten the song. A few months later, in June 1968, he was in a rehearsal hall preparing for his television special. This special would become known as the 68 Comeback Special. It was his chance to break free from the movies. It was his chance to be a real musician again. He was surrounded by his old bandmates, Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana. They were jamming, playing old hits. The energy was raw. Elvis, dressed in black leather, was reconnecting with the music that made him famous. He decided to re-record A Little Less Conversation for the special. This new version was even tougher. It was stripped down. The arrangement was a lot looser, almost frantic. He snarled the lyrics. He was telling the world, and his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, that he was done with the silly movie scripts and weak songs. He wanted action. The song was meant to be part of a big production number, but the idea was scrapped. The 1968 television version was not released until the 1990s. The song went back into the vault. It was a footnote. Fast forward to 2001, the director Steven Soderbergh was remaking the 1960 heist film Ocean's 11. He needed a cool, energetic song for the soundtrack. The filmmakers licensed the original 1968 movie version. It worked perfectly. The song suddenly sounded fresh again. It had a swagger that fit the film's style. People heard it and wanted to know what it was. The renewed interest caught the attention of a Dutch DJ named Tom Holkenborg, who went by the name Junkie the 40th. He was a fan. He saw the potential in the track. He got permission from the Elvis Presley estate and RCA Records to remix the song. He took the original vocal track from the 1968 recording. He kept Elvis's powerful, demanding voice, but he threw out the original backing track. He built a new song around Elvis's vocal. He added a powerful new bass line, driving drums, and modern electronic sounds. He kept the funky guitar riff, but made it sharper. The result was explosive. The Junkie the 40th remix, credited as Elvis vs. JXL, was released in 2002. It was for a Nike advertising campaign for the FIFA World Cup. The commercial was seen by millions around the world. The song was an instant sensation. It was released as a single and went to #1 in the United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, and over 20 other countries. In the US, it reached the top 50, but its sales were strong enough to make it a certified gold record. A song that had been a complete failure in 1968 became a global smash hit in 2002. It introduced Elvis to a new generation. The story is wilder than the movie it came from. Live a Little, Love a Little is a forgettable comedy. But the song's journey from a movie soundtrack reject to a symbol of artistic rebellion and a comeback special to a remixed global anthem is a remarkable story of musical resurrection. It proves that a great performance is timeless. It just sometimes has to wait for the world to be ready to listen. Number 20, who really wrote the most iconic rock and roll lyrics? The lyrics include the lines, number 47 said to number 3, "You're the cutest jailbird I ever did see." Another line is, "The sad sack was a sittin' on a block of stone, way over in the corner weepin' all alone." The song was Jailhouse Rock. It was recorded on April 30th, 1957. The movie of the same name is considered one of Elvis's best. But the story of how the song was written is a classic music business tale. The writers were Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. They were two young guys from New York. They had already written Hound Dog for Elvis. They were known for writing clever, story-driven R&B songs. They were brilliant. They were also professionals who understood the pressure of deadlines. In early 1957, their publisher, Jean Aberbach, called them. He told them Elvis needed songs for a new movie. The movie was called Jailhouse Kid. Lieber and Stoller weren't interested. They were artists. They didn't like writing to a formula for a movie. They told Aberbach no. Aberbach was not a man who took no for an answer. He went to their hotel in New York. They were staying at the Gorham Hotel. He pushed a sofa in front of their door. He trapped them. He told them they were not leaving until they wrote the songs for Elvis. Stuck in their hotel room, they looked at the script. It was thin. There wasn't much to work with. But one scene stood out. It described a show put on by the prison inmates. This was their starting point. Lieber, the lyricist, started thinking. He didn't want to write a generic song about being in jail. He wanted to create a world. He invented characters. He came up with names like Sad Sack, Shifty Henry, and the Purple Gang. These were not random. Shifty Henry was a real musician in Los Angeles. The Purple Gang was a famous Detroit mob. Lieber was painting a picture with words. The lyrics were funny and slightly surreal. They described a rock and roll party inside a prison. It was a fantasy. Stoller, the composer, sat at the piano. He created a pounding, aggressive rock and roll riff. It was simple, but powerful. It had a raw energy that matched the lyrics. They wrote 4 songs that day, trapped in their hotel room. They wrote Jailhouse Rock, I Want to Be Free, You're So Square, Baby I Don't Care, and Treat Me Nice. They finished them in about 4 hours. When they were done, they pushed the sofa away and called Aberbach. They played him the songs. He loved them. He took the demos to Hollywood for Elvis. Elvis loved them too. The recording session was set. Lieber and Stoller flew to Los Angeles to oversee the recording. This was unusual. Colonel Parker didn't like outside people having influence over Elvis, but Lieber and Stoller were different. They were the writers. At the studio radio recorders, the atmosphere was tense. Elvis was a professional. He worked hard, but he was also the biggest star in the world. He was used to getting his way. Lieber and Stoller were young, but they were confident. They knew how the song should sound. They argued with the session musicians. They argued with the engineers. At one point, Mike Stoller had a disagreement with Elvis himself over a chord change in Treat Me Nice. Stoller insisted on his version. Elvis listened. He respected them. The final recording of Jailhouse Rock is a masterpiece of 1950s rock and roll. Elvis's vocal is incredible. It's raw and full of attitude. The band is tight. The production is sharp. The story behind the song is a perfect example of creativity under pressure. 2 young writers locked in a hotel room created one of the most enduring songs in music history. The movie is a classic, but the image of Gene Aberbach pushing a sofa against a hotel door to force the creation of a hit song is a wilder story. It's about how commerce and art can clash and sometimes create something brilliant. Number 19 was this ballad based on a 250-year-old French song. The song is Can't Help Falling in Love. It is one of Elvis's most beloved ballads. It closed his live shows for years. It was in the 1961 movie Blue Hawaii. The film was a lighthearted musical comedy. It was a huge box office success. But the song was almost rejected. The melody was not new. It was based on a classical French love song from 1784. The original song was Plaisir d'amour, which means the pleasure of love. It was composed by Jean-Paul Egide Martini. The lyrics were from a poem by Jean-Pierre Claris de Florian. It was a beautiful, melancholic song about love being fleeting. For over 170 years, it was a standard of the classical repertoire. In 1961, the songwriters Hugo Peretti, Luigi Creatore, and George David Weiss were hired to write songs for Blue Hawaii. They were given the task of creating a ballad for a key scene. In the movie, Elvis's character, Chad Gates, gives a music box to his girlfriend's grandmother. The song was supposed to be the melody, played by the music box. The writers listened to Plaisir d'amour. They recognized its timeless quality. They decided to use the melody as a foundation. They wrote new lyrics in English. The new lyrics were simpler. They were more direct. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. They created a demo and presented it to the film's producers and music publishers. Everyone hated it. They thought it was clumsy. They said the title was too long. They said the melody was too old-fashioned. They thought it sounded like a funeral dirge. Colonel Parker was against it. The music publisher, Freddie Bienstock, was against it. They wanted something more upbeat, something more commercial. There was only one person who loved it. It was Elvis. He heard the demo and immediately connected with it. He fought for the song. He told the producers that this was the song he wanted to sing in that scene. He insisted. His star power was immense. What Elvis wanted, Elvis usually got. The producers gave in. The song was included in the movie. The recording session took place on March 23rd, 1961 at Radio Recorders. Elvis was meticulous. He reportedly recorded 29 takes. He wanted every note to be perfect. The arrangement was simple and elegant. It featured a celeste, an instrument that sounds like a music box, a perfect touch for the movie scene. His vocal performance is gentle and sincere. It is one of his most vulnerable recordings. When Blue Hawaii was released, the song was a standout. It was released as a single paired with Rock a Hula Baby. Can't Help Falling in Love quickly overshadowed the A-side. It went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. It was a number 1 hit in the UK. It became a global standard. The story behind the song is about artistic instinct. Elvis, the rock and roll rebel, saw the beauty in a 250-year-old melody. He trusted his gut when all the businessmen and so-called experts told him he was wrong. They saw a slow, clumsy song. He saw a timeless classic. The movie Blue Hawaii is a fun piece of escapism, but the battle to get Can't Help Falling in Love recorded is a more compelling story. It shows that sometimes the artist really does know best. Number 18, Why Did Elvis Sing in German? A major Elvis hit from 1960 features him singing part of the lyrics in German. The song was Wooden Heart. The German line is Muss ich denn zum Stadtteil hinaus. The song was from the movie G.I. Blues. The film was his first after leaving the army. It was a fictionalized account of a U.S. soldier stationed in Germany. The movie was a huge success. The story of Wooden Heart involves a German folk song, a shrewd manager, and a rival singer who beat Elvis to the punch. Elvis was stationed in West Germany with the U.S. Army from 1958 to 1960. Colonel Parker saw this as a huge marketing opportunity. He wanted to make a movie that capitalized on Elvis's time as a soldier. G.I. Blues was the result. The soundtrack needed songs that fit the German setting. The songwriters Fred Wise, Ben Wiseman, Kay Toomey, and Bert Kaempfert were tasked with creating the music. Kaempfert, a German band leader and producer, suggested using a traditional German folk song. The song was Muss ich denn. It was a popular song from the Swabian region of Germany dating back to the 19th century. The lyrics are about a young man leaving his beloved and his small town. It was a farewell song. The writers took the melody of Muss ich denn and wrote new English lyrics around it. They kept the original German chorus. The new song told the story of a soldier saying goodbye to a local girl, giving her a wooden heart as a keepsake. It was a perfect fit for the movie. Elvis recorded the song on April 28th, 1960 at RCA Studio B in Nashville. The arrangement was quirky. It featured an accordion and a tuba to give it a German beer hall feel. Elvis sang the German lyrics phonetically. He didn't speak the language. His performance is charming and a little goofy. It's not a rock and roll song. It's a novelty pop song. Here's where the story gets strange. RCA Records in the United States did not believe the song would be a hit. They thought it was too European. They thought it was too much of a novelty. They decided not to release Wooden Heart as a single in the US. Instead, they released GI Blues and A Night Is So Right for Love. In Europe, however, Wooden Heart was released as a single. It was a massive hit. It went to #1 in the United Kingdom and several other countries. It sold millions of copies. Back in the US, a singer named Joe Dowell heard the Elvis version from Europe. He loved it. He recorded a cover version. His version was very similar to Elvis's. Cadence Records released Dowell's version in the summer of 1961. It shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a huge smash. RCA was caught completely off guard. A rival artist had a #1 hit with a cover of their own artist's song, which they had refused to release. They were forced to finally release the Elvis version as a B-side to Blue Christmas late in 1964. By then, the moment had passed. Elvis's version of Wooden Heart never charted as a single in the US during its initial run. The story is a classic case of a record company making a huge miscalculation. They underestimated the song's appeal. They underestimated Elvis's ability to sell any kind of music. The movie GI Blues is a light comedy. But the business battle behind Wooden Heart, with a German folk song becoming a UK #1, and then a US #1 for a different artist, is a wilder tale of missed opportunities and market forces. Colonel Parker's idea to tap into the German market worked better than anyone, especially his own record label, could have ever imagined. #17, how did a demo singer's mistake make the final record? The song has one of the most memorable saxophone solos in rock and roll history. The opening line is instantly recognizable, return to sender, address unknown. The song is Return to Sender. It was from the 1962 movie Girls, Girls, Girls. The movie was another formulaic musical. The story behind the song involves a legendary songwriter, a famous sax player, and a happy accident in the recording studio. The song was written by Otis Blackwell and Winfield Scott. Blackwell was a genius. He had written Don't Be Cruel and I'll Shook Up for Elvis. He was a master of writing catchy, clever rock and roll songs. He knew how to write for Elvis's voice and style. The idea for Return to Sender was simple. It was about a man mailing letters to his girlfriend after a fight and having them all come back stamped with reasons for non-delivery. It was a clever, modern take on a classic Love Gone Wrong theme. Blackwell recorded a demo of the song to send to Elvis's publisher. On the demo, Blackwell sang the lead vocal and played the piano. As he got to the end of the song, he didn't have a big finish planned. So he just kept repeating the final line and faded out the recording. It was a common practice for demos. It was just a way to end the track. The demo was sent to Elvis. He loved it. The recording session was scheduled for March 27th, 1962 at Radio Recorders. The band was Elvis's A-list session crew, including the legendary saxophonist Boots Randolph. Randolph was known for his work on many Nashville hits, including Yakety Sax. The band listened to Blackwell's demo to learn the song. They heard the fade out at the end. They assumed it was part of the song's arrangement. They thought it was a deliberate creative choice. So when they recorded the song with Elvis, they replicated the fade out. They played their instruments with decreasing volume, and Elvis sang with less power, mimicking the demo exactly. It wasn't planned. It was a misunderstanding. But it worked. The fade out gave the song a unique ending. It sounded like the story was just drifting away. Boots Randolph's contribution was also crucial. His saxophone solo is a highlight of the track. It's punchy, melodic, and perfectly fits the song's upbeat rhythm. It became one of the most famous sax solos of the era. Return to Sender was a standout song on the Girls soundtrack. It was far better than most of the other material, which included the bizarre Song of the Shrimp. RCA knew they had a hit. They released it as a single. It was a huge success. It reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and was a #1 hit in the UK. It was one of Elvis's biggest hits of the 1960s. The story shows how small, accidental moments can create magic in music. Otis Blackwell's simple decision to fade out a demo had a direct impact on the final hit record. The session musicians, in their professional attempt to copy what they heard, created a memorable ending that was never intended by the writer. The movie is a generic Elvis vehicle, but the creation of its biggest hit song is a story of misinterpretation leading to perfection. It's a wilder, more interesting tale of how creative accidents happen. Number 16 was Elvis just cashing in on a dance craze. In the early 1960s, a new sound and dance style from Brazil swept the world. It was the bossa nova. It was sophisticated, cool, and jazzy. Artists like Stan Getz and João Gilberto had huge hits with songs like The Girl from Ipanema. And 1963, Elvis Presley released a song called Bossa Nova Baby. It was from his movie Fun in Acapulco. The title suggests Elvis was jumping on a popular trend, but the song itself tells a different story. Bossa Nova Baby was written by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. These were the same writers behind Jailhouse Rock and Hound Dog. They were not known for writing sophisticated Brazilian jazz. They wrote rock and roll, and Bossa Nova Baby is not a bossa nova song. Not really. It has a slight Latin rhythm, but it's a high-energy rock and roll song at its core. It's loud, fast, and driven by electric guitars and a pounding drum beat. It's more Memphis than Rio de Janeiro. The song was originally recorded by a group called The Clovers in 1962. Their version was a bit smoother, more in the R&B style. When Elvis recorded his version on January 22nd, 1963 at Radio Recorders, he cranked up the energy. His performance is raw and powerful. He attacks the lyrics. He's not trying to be cool and sophisticated. He's being Elvis. The decision to call the song Bossa Nova Baby was a pure marketing move. The bossa nova craze was at its peak. The title was a way to make the song sound current and trendy. It was a way for Colonel Parker and the studio to cash in on a popular fad. The movie Fun in Acapulco was also trying to capitalize on the public's fascination with exotic locations. The whole package was designed to be commercial, but the performance itself is a kind of rebellion. Elvis takes the trendy title and ignores it. He sings the song his way. He turns a potential piece of lightweight fluff into a solid rock and roll number. The contrast between the title and the actual music is striking. It's as if Elvis is saying, you can call it what you want, but I'm going to sing it like me. In the movie, the scene for Bossa Nova Baby is a nightclub performance. Elvis, backed by a band, performs the song with his trademark energy. He shakes his hips. The crowd goes wild. The scene is one of the highlights of a mostly forgettable film. The song was released as a single and became a top 10 hit in the US. It was a commercial success, proving the marketing strategy worked. The story behind Bossa Nova Baby is a perfect example of the tension in Elvis's career at the time. He was a product packaged and sold by his manager and the movie studios. They wanted to use trends and fads to sell records and movie tickets. But he was also a powerful artist. He could take a song designed to exploit a trend and infuse it with his own unique energy, making it something more than just a marketing gimmick. The film is a travelogue with a weak plot. The story of a rock and roll king co-opting a Brazilian jazz craze to create a rockabilly stomper is a far more interesting tale about the intersection of art and commerce. Number 15, did Elvis and Anne Margaret have an affair fueled by this song? The song is Viva Las Vegas. The movie is Viva Las Vegas. Released in 1964, it is arguably Elvis's most famous and beloved film. The reason is simple. The explosive on-screen chemistry between Elvis and his co-star, Anne Margaret. That chemistry was not just acting. It was real. And the title song was the soundtrack to their passionate, highly publicized affair. The song was written by Doc Pomus and Mort Schumann. They were a legendary songwriting team who had written hits like Save the Last Dance for Me and Mari's the Name His Latest Flame for Elvis. Pomus, who was paralyzed by polio and used a wheelchair, wrote lyrics that were full of life and energy. Viva Las Vegas is a perfect example. The lyrics are a celebration of the city's glamour and excitement. Bright, light city, gonna set my soul on fire. The recording session took place on July 10th, 1963 at Radio Recorders. The track is a powerhouse. It's one of Elvis's most energetic and exciting recordings of the 1960s. The band is on fire. Elvis's vocal is electrifying. He sounds genuinely thrilled. This was not just another day at the office recording another forgettable movie song. Something was different. That something was Anne Margaret. They met on the set of the film. The attraction was immediate and intense. They were both young, beautiful, and at the peak of their fame. They shared a love of music, motorcycles, and performing. The press called him the king and her the female Elvis. They were a perfect match. Their affair began almost instantly. It was an open secret in Hollywood. The energy of their real-life romance is visible on screen. Their dance numbers together, especially the one for the song Mon Everybody, are electric. They move in perfect sync. They are playful, sensual, and completely captivated by each other. This chemistry made the movie a massive hit. However, the affair caused a lot of drama behind the scenes. Elvis was officially with Priscilla Beaulieu, who was living at Graceland. When Priscilla heard the reports about Elvis and Anne Margaret, she was devastated. The press was full of pictures of the happy couple. It created a major crisis in their relationship. Colonel Tom Parker was also unhappy, but his reasons were professional, not personal. He felt that Anne Margaret was stealing the spotlight from Elvis. Her musical numbers were strong, her screen presence was powerful. The movie was starting to feel like a co-starring vehicle, not just an Elvis movie. The Colonel wanted Elvis to be the undisputed star. He made sure that some of Anne Margaret's songs were cut from the final film to reduce her screen time. The song Viva Las Vegas became the anthem for this period. It captured the high-octane energy of both the city and the romance. When Elvis sings Viva Las Vegas, you can hear the excitement of a man living life to the fullest, both on and off the screen. The affair with Anne Margaret eventually ended. Elvis returned to Priscilla and married her in 1967, but he and Anne Margaret remained friends for the rest of his life. The movie Viva Las Vegas is a fun, energetic romp, but the story behind it, a story of a passionate affair between two superstars, the jealousy of the woman waiting at home, and the anger of a controlling manager, is a real-life drama that is far more compelling than the fictional plot about a race car driver in Las Vegas. Number 14, how did a swamp rocker from Louisiana save Elvis's career? By 1967, Elvis Presley was in a creative slump. The British invasion had changed music forever. Artists like the Beatles and Bob Dylan were writing their own songs and pushing creative boundaries. Elvis was stuck in Hollywood, churning out a series of terrible movies with equally terrible soundtracks. His 1967 film Clambake was a new low, but one song from that soundtrack pointed the way forward. It was a beacon of hope. That song was Get Our Man. The song was written and originally recorded by a country musician from Louisiana named Jerry Reed. Reed was a brilliant and unique guitar player. He had a syncopated finger-picking style that was all his own. Guitar Man was a semi-autobiographical song about a young musician with a guitar, traveling from town to town, trying to make it big. It was authentic, it was real. Elvis heard Reed's version on the radio. He loved it. It spoke to him. It reminded him of his own early days, driving around the South with his guitar, playing anywhere he could. At the time, he was recording the soundtrack for Clambake. The songs were mostly awful, like the title track Clambake. Elvis was miserable. He knew the music was bad. When he heard Guitar Man, he knew he had to record it. The recording session was scheduled for September 10th, 1967, at RCA Studio B in Nashville. Elvis's usual session musicians were there. They tried to replicate Jerry Reed's distinctive guitar part, but they couldn't. The style was too unique. It was all in Reed's fingers. After several failed takes, Elvis got frustrated. He stopped the session. He told his producer, Felton Jarvis, "Get me that guy who wrote the song. Get Jerry Reed in here." It was late on a Sunday night, and Felton Jarvis had to track down Jerry Reed. He finally found him at home. Reed was stunned. Elvis Presley wanted him to play on his record. Before Reed rushed to the studio, he was nervous, but Elvis immediately put him at ease. Elvis told him he loved the song and that nobody could play the guitar part right. He asked Reed to show them how it was done. Reed picked up his nylon string guitar and started playing that iconic intro riff. The studio came alive. With Reed on guitar, the song suddenly had the right feel, it had authenticity, and Elvis was inspired. He sang the song with passion and conviction. It was the best vocal performance he had given in years. You could hear the joy in his voice. He was finally singing a real song again. The session was so successful that they immediately recorded another Jerry Reed song, Big Boss Man. Guitar Man was included on the Clambake soundtrack. It was like finding a diamond in a pile of garbage. It was so much better than the other songs that it felt out of place. When released as a single, it was a modest hit. It didn't set the charts on fire, but its importance was huge. The recording of Guitar Man was a turning point. It was the moment Elvis started to take back control of his music. He had asserted his artistic will. He had stopped the session. He had demanded a specific musician. He was no longer just a passive participant. This experience reawakened his passion for recording. It led directly to the creative rebirth of the '68 Comeback Special, where he opened the show with a powerful new version of Guitar Man. The movie Clambake is a bad film that represents the lowest point of his movie career. The story of how Guitar Man was recorded is the story of the beginning of his comeback. It's a story of an artist rediscovering his soul, all thanks to a swamp rocker from Louisiana. Number 13 was this nursery rhyme turned into a rock and roll hit. The song's lyrics are incredibly simple. "Oh, let me be your teddy bear." It's one of Elvis's most famous songs from the 1950s. The song is "Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear." It was from the 1957 film Loving You, his second movie. The film was a big step up from Love Me Tender. It was in color and had a stronger plot. But the story behind its biggest hit song is less about art and more about brilliant, cynical marketing. The song was written by Cal Mann and Bernie Lowe. They were professional songwriters working in the Brill Building tradition. They were tasked with writing a hit for the new Elvis movie. They knew that Elvis had a huge female fan base. They wanted to write a song that would appeal directly to them. The idea of a teddy bear was perfect. It was cute, cuddly, and non-threatening. It allowed girls to project their affection onto an object, the teddy bear, which represented Elvis. The song is not a deep piece of songwriting. It's a simple, repetitive, and incredibly catchy pop song. The structure is straightforward. The melody is easy to remember. It was designed to be a commercial product. And it was designed to sell another product, actual teddy bears. Colonel Tom Parker was a marketing genius. He understood that Elvis was more than just a singer. He was a brand. The Colonel licensed Elvis's name and image for dozens of products, charm bracelets, lipstick, guitars, and more. When he heard the song Teddy Bear, he saw a golden opportunity. He immediately arranged for a massive merchandising campaign centered around Elvis-themed teddy bears. The plan worked perfectly. The song was released as a single in June 1957. It shot to #1 on the Billboard charts and stayed there for 7 weeks. It was a monster hit, and as the song climbed the charts, sales of Elvis teddy bears exploded. Fans sent thousands of teddy bears to Graceland. It became a cultural phenomenon. Elvis's performance of the song is key to its success. He sings it with a playful charm. But he adds his signature vocal hiccups and a touch of rock and roll energy. He takes what could have been a silly nursery rhyme and makes it cool. In the movie Loving You, he performs the song on stage. The audience of screaming girls goes wild. The scene perfectly captured the reality of Elvis mania. The story behind Teddy Bear is a prime example of Colonel Parker's business strategy. The song was not chosen for its artistic merit. It was chosen for its marketing potential. It was a song created to sell merchandise. In this case, the art served the commerce. This would become a recurring theme throughout Elvis's career, especially in the 1960s, when the movie soundtracks were often little more than advertisements for the films themselves. The movie Loving You is a solid film that captures the excitement of Elvis's early career, but the story of how Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear was conceived as a marketing tool to sell toys as a wilder, more cynical look at the business of being Elvis. It shows how, from the very beginning, the king of rock and roll was also the king of merchandise. Number 12 was this song a direct message from the king of rock and roll. The song opens with a menacing, bluesy guitar riff. The first line Elvis sings is, "If you're looking for trouble, you came to the right place." The song is Trouble. It was written for the 1958 film King Creole. The movie is widely considered to be Elvis's best acting performance. And the song Trouble is the perfect mission statement for his character and for the rebellious image he cultivated in the 1950s. The song was written by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. They had already proven they could write for Elvis with Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock. For King Creole, they were given the script beforehand. They were asked to write songs that would fit the character of Danny Fisher, a troubled youth in New Orleans who becomes a nightclub singer. Lieber and Stoller understood the character perfectly. Danny Fisher was not a bad kid, but he had a temper. He was proud. He didn't back down from a fight. He was, in a word, trouble. Lieber wrote the lyrics as a defiant anthem. It's a list of boasts. I was born standing up and talking back. My daddy was a green-eyed mountain jack. The lyrics are tough, full of swagger and attitude. They are a direct challenge to anyone who doubts the singer's toughness. Stoller composed the music as a slow, grinding blues. It's not a fast rock and roll song, it has a heavy, threatening feel. The arrangement is sparse, built around a simple guitar riff and a pounding drum beat. It leaves plenty of room for Elvis's voice. Elvis recorded the song on January 15, 1958 at Radio Recorders. His performance is one of his all-time best. He doesn't just sing the song. He inhabits it, he snarls the lyrics. His voice is full of menace and confidence. When he sings, "My middle name is Misery," you believe him. This was the Elvis that parents feared. This was the raw, untamed energy that made him a superstar. The song was a perfect fit for the movie, but it was also a perfect fit for Elvis himself. In 1958, he was the biggest and most controversial star in the world. He was seen by the establishment as a threat to polite society. His music was called vulgar. His dancing was called obscene. He was constantly being criticized. Trouble was his answer. It was a way of saying, yes, I am what you say I am, and I'm proud of it. It was a declaration of independence. This makes the song even more poignant when you consider what came later. After he left the army in 1960, his image was softened. He was pushed into light-hearted musical comedies. He sang songs like Do the Clam and Song of the Shrimp. The rebellious, dangerous Elvis of Trouble disappeared for a long time. That's why his performance of Trouble in the 68 comeback special is so powerful. When he opened the show, dressed in black leather, singing that menacing blues riff, it was a stunning moment. He was announcing the return of the real Elvis. He was reclaiming his legacy. He was reminding the world that he was not just a movie star who sang silly songs. He was the man who had been born standing up and talking back. The movie King Creole is a great film noir. But the story of Trouble is the story of Elvis's own identity as a rebel, an identity he had to fight to reclaim. Number 11. Did Elvis steal credit for a Civil War song? It is his first and most iconic ballad. It was the title song of his first movie, released in 1956. The song is Love Me Tender. On the record label, the songwriting credits are listed as Vera Mattson and Elvis Presley, but Elvis Presley did not write any part of the song. And Vera Mattson was just a name used by her husband, the actual lyricist. The melody itself was over 90 years old, dating back to the American Civil War. The story begins with the melody. It comes from a sentimental ballad from 1861 called Orale. It was composed by George R. Poulton with lyrics by W. W. Fosdick. It was a popular song during the Civil War, sung by soldiers on both sides. It was also a favorite of glee clubs and barbershop quartets. By the 20th century, it had become a standard a part of the American musical landscape. In 1956, Elvis was cast in his first film. The original title was The Reno Brothers. It was a Western. The producers decided they wanted to include some songs to capitalize on Elvis's musical fame. They hired a composer named Ken Darby to be the musical director. Darby was asked to write a theme song. He remembered the old melody of Oralea. He thought its gentle, folk-like quality would be a good contrast to Elvis's rock and roll image. Darby wrote new lyrics to the Oralea melody. The new lyrics were a simple, direct declaration of love. Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. He created the song that we know today. Here is where the business side of the story comes in. And Colonel Tom Parker had a rule. He believed that since Elvis's performance was what would make a song a hit, Elvis should get a piece of the songwriting royalties. This was a common, if unethical, practice in the music industry at the time. It was called a cut-in. The Colonel insisted that any songwriter who wanted Elvis to record their song had to give up a percentage of the publishing rights and often a co-writing credit to Elvis. Ken Darby was a professional. He understood how the business worked. He agreed to the deal, but he didn't want his own name associated with it. So he credited the lyrics to his wife, Vera Mattson, and Elvis Presley was given a co-writing credit despite not having written a single word or a single note. As a result, Elvis and his estate have earned millions of dollars in songwriting royalties from Love Me Tender over the years. Ken Darby himself later said, "He has the right to adjust the music and lyrics, but he never did. He's not a writer." Elvis first performed the song on The Ed Sullivan Show on September 9th, 1956, a month before the movie was released. The public reaction was overwhelming. RCA received over 1 million advance orders for the single, a record at the time. The song went to #1. The movie's title was changed from The Reno Brothers to Love Me Tender to capitalize on the song's massive success. The story behind Love Me Tender is a classic tale of old Hollywood and music business practices. It involves a 19th century folk melody, a songwriter who credited his wife, and a superstar who received a writing credit for a song he didn't write, all orchestrated by a shrewd and demanding manager. The movie is a simple black and white Western. The story of the song's creation is a more complex and fascinating look at the machinery behind the myth. Number 10, why was this the first Elvis single to not make the top 10 in years? For years, Elvis Presley was a guaranteed hitmaker. From 1956 to 1962, nearly every single he released went into the top 10 on the Billboard charts. He was a commercial juggernaut, but in early 1963, that streak was broken. The song that broke it was One Broken Heart for Sale. It was from the movie It Happened at the World's Fair. The song stalled at number 11. It was a sign that the magic formula was starting to wear thin. The song was written by Otis Blackwell and Winfield Scott, the same team that wrote the massive hit Return to Sender. On paper, it should have been a success. Blackwell was one of Elvis's most reliable hit writers, but One Broken Heart for Sale was different. It felt rushed. It was short, clocking in at just under 2 minutes. The lyrics were clever, framing heartbreak as a commercial transaction, but the song lacked the energy and passion of his earlier hits. The recording session took place on September 22nd, 1962 at Radio Recorders. Elvis's performance is professional, but he sounds a bit bored. There is a lack of conviction in his voice. He's going through the motions. The arrangement is upbeat and has a novelty sound, but it's not memorable. It's a piece of lightweight pop designed to fit into a lightweight movie. The movie itself, It Happened at the World's Fair, was part of the problem. It was a flimsy travelogue designed to showcase the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. The plot was weak. Elvis played a crop duster pilot. The film co-starred a very young Kurt Russell. It was a forgettable entry in the Elvis filmography. The music reflected the film's lack of ambition. The failure of One Broken Heart for Sale to crack the top 10 was a significant moment. It was the first indication that the audience's appetite for the same old Elvis movie formula might be waning. The music world was changing rapidly. The Beatles were about to explode in America. The sound of pop music was evolving. Elvis's movie soundtracks were starting to sound dated and out of touch. Colonel Parker and RCA were not too concerned at first. The song still sold well. The movie was financially successful, but it was a crack in the armor. It showed that Elvis was not invincible. The strategy of putting out 3 movies a year with mediocre soundtracks was starting to have consequences. For Elvis, it must have been frustrating. He was a brilliant singer, capable of great things, but he was trapped in a contract that forced him to record songs he didn't believe in for movies he didn't want to make. One Broken Heart for Sale is not a terrible song. It's just a forgettable one. And for an artist as dynamic as Elvis Presley, being forgettable was the biggest crime of all. The movie is a time capsule of a World's Fair. The story of the song is a more important historical marker. It was the first warning sign. It was the moment the unstoppable hit machine first sputtered. It was a quiet signal that the golden age was ending, and a long, slow decline into creative mediocrity was beginning. Number 9 was This a Hidden Cry for Help. The movie was Harum Skarum, released in 1965. It is almost universally regarded as one of Elvis's worst films. He plays an American movie star who is kidnapped and taken to a fictional Middle Eastern country. The plot is absurd. The costumes are ridiculous. Elvis looks miserable throughout the entire film. The soundtrack is just as bad, filled with songs like Go East, Young Man, and Shake That Tambourine. But hidden among the dreadful material is one song that is shockingly beautiful. It's a ballad called So Close, Yet So Far from Paradise. The song was written by Joy Byers. She was a staff writer for Elvis's publisher. She wrote many songs for his movies, most of them forgettable. But So Close, Yet So Far was different. It's a melancholic, haunting ballad about longing for a place of peace and happiness that seems just out of reach. The lyrics are surprisingly deep for a movie soundtrack song. My heart is a ship in a storm-tossed sea. No friendly harbor to welcome me. I'm so close, yet so far from paradise. Elvis recorded the song on February 26, 1965 at RCA Studio B in Nashville. His vocal performance is stunning. He sings with a quiet, desperate sadness. You can hear the genuine emotion in his voice. It's a performance full of pain and longing. He connects with the lyrics on a deeply personal level. It's impossible not to hear the song as a reflection of Elvis's own life at that time. By 1965, he was trapped. He was a prisoner of his own fame. He was stuck in a contract that forced him to make these terrible movies. He was creatively stifled. He was isolated from the real world, surrounded by his entourage, the Memphis Mafia. He was living in a golden cage. He was in Hollywood, which should have been paradise for a performer. But he was so close to real artistic fulfillment, yet so far away. The song's lyrics seem to be a direct commentary on his situation. My world is a world of tinsel and glitter. I'm a king in a castle, but I'm a lonely man. These lines are too perfect to be a coincidence. Whether the songwriter intended it or not, Elvis certainly interpreted it that way. He poured all of his frustration and sadness into his performance. The song is completely out of place in Harum Skarum. It's a moment of genuine artistry in a film that is otherwise a complete joke. When you watch the scene, Elvis sings the song with a pained expression on his face. He is not acting. He is feeling it. The story behind So Close, Yet So Far is the story of an artist finding a way to express his true feelings, even within the confines of a terrible project. It's a hidden message, a cry for help buried in the soundtrack of a silly movie. The film is a laughable mess. But the song is a heartbreaking masterpiece. It provides a rare and powerful glimpse into the soul of a man who had the world at his feet, but felt like he was a million miles from paradise. Number 8, did Elvis really have to sing a nursery rhyme? Yes, he did. In the 1967 movie Double Trouble, there is a scene where Elvis Presley sings Old MacDonald. He sings it to a group of children. It is a moment that many Elvis fans consider the absolute lowest point of his entire career. It is painful to watch. The king of rock and roll, the man who sang Heartbreak Hotel and Jailhouse Rock, reduced to singing a nursery rhyme in a terrible movie. The recording session for the Double Trouble soundtrack took place in June 1966. The songs were uninspired. The title track, Double Trouble, was a weak attempt at a bluesy number. Other songs included City by Night and Cooled I Fall in Love. But the inclusion of Old MacDonald was a new level of embarrassment. The decision to include the song was made by the film's producers and presumably approved by Colonel Parker. The movie was a clumsy spy comedy set in Europe. The scene was meant to be a charming moment showing Elvis's character's gentle side. But the execution was cringeworthy. At the recording session, the mood was reportedly grim. The session musicians, some of Nashville's best, were professionals. They would play whatever was put in front of them, but they knew this was bad. There were stories that people in the control booth were snickering, and Elvis himself was deeply unhappy. He hated the songs he was being given. He knew they were terrible, but he was trapped by his contracts. He had to do it. His performance of Old MacDonald is professional. He sings it straight. But you can hear the lack of enthusiasm. There is no joy in his voice. He is a man doing a job he despises. He even has to make the animal sounds, the oinks of the pig, the moos of the cow. For a man who had revolutionized popular music, it was a profound humiliation. Old MacDonald represents the complete surrender of art to commerce in Elvis's career. It was a song included for purely formulaic reasons. It was a box to be checked. The singing to kids scene, it showed a total disregard for his talent and his legacy. The Colonel and the studios no longer saw him as an artist. They saw him as a product, a machine for generating money. And if that meant singing nursery rhymes, so be it. The song was a wake-up call for Elvis. He was hitting rock bottom. This experience, along with other terrible songs from this period, fueled his desire to break free. It was the catalyst for him to seek out better material like Guitar Man, and to eventually stage his comeback in 1968. He had to sink this low to find the motivation to fight back. The movie Double Trouble is unwatchable. The story of Elvis being forced to sing Old MacDonald is more than just a funny or sad anecdote. It's a crucial part of his biography. It's the story of an artist's humiliation. It's the darkness before the dawn of his great comeback. Number 7, What Happens When a Beach Party Movie Has No Beach? The movie was Girl Happy, released in 1965. It was designed to be an Elvis version of the popular Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello beach party movies. The plot is standard for the genre. Elvis plays a singer whose band is hired by a Chicago gangster to secretly chaperone his daughter on her spring break trip to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The movie poster features Elvis on a beach surrounded by girls in bikinis. There's just one problem. Most of the movie was shot on a studio backlot in Hollywood, and the theme song for this beach party movie was a ridiculous dance craze song called Do the Clam. Do the Clam was written by a team of songwriters Ben Wiseman, Dolores Fuller, and Sid Wayne. They were tasked with creating a new dance song in the vein of The Twist or the Hully Gully. Their creation was The Clam. The lyrics are pure nonsense. Grab your barefoot baby by the hand. Do the clam, do the clam. Now you're in the groove and you're feeling grand. Do the clam, do the clam. There is no explanation of what the clam actually is or how to do it. The song is a perfect example of the artificiality of Elvis's movie career at this point. It's a synthetic song created by a committee to cash in on a trend dance crazes for a synthetic movie that pretends to be in Florida but is actually in California. There is nothing real or authentic about it. Elvis recorded the song on June 12th, 1964. He sings it with a kind of resigned energy. He's a professional, so he gives it his all, but the material is so weak, the song is repetitive and silly. In the film, he performs the song in a nightclub. He demonstrates the dance, which involves clapping your hands together like a clam. The scene is goofy and embarrassing. The movie Girl Happy and the song Do the Clam represent the Elvis formula at its most cynical. The studio, MGM, knew that the formula worked. Put Elvis in an exotic location or a fake one, surround him with pretty girls, give him a dozen or so mediocre songs, and the fans would show up. The quality didn't matter. It was a product, and it sold. The contrast with his early work is staggering. The man who had sung with raw passion about heartbreak and rebellion was now singing a song about a fictional seafood-based dance. It's a story about the creative assembly line of Hollywood. The movie is not a piece of art, it's a product manufactured for profit. The song is not a piece of music, it's a marketing jingle for the film. The film itself is a harmless, silly piece of fluff. But the story behind it, and particularly behind Do the Clam, is a story of creative bankruptcy. It's a story of how a great artist can get trapped in a golden cage, forced to create work that is beneath him. It's wilder than the film because it's a real story about the slow, painful process of selling out. Number 6 was This the Worst song Elvis ever recorded. Many fans and critics would say yes, the song is Yoga Is As Yoga Does. It is a duet with the actress Elsa Lanchester, who is most famous for playing the Bride of Frankenstein. The song is from the 1967 movie Easy Come, Easy Go. It is, without a doubt, one of the most bizarre and cringe-inducing recordings of Elvis Presley's career. The song was written by Fred Wise and Gerald Nelson. It was intended to be a comedic novelty song, making fun of the yoga and counterculture movements that were becoming popular in the mid-1960s. The lyrics are painfully bad. You tell me that a yogi can stand on his head for a week, but what's he going to do for an encore? That's a trick I'd like to seek. Elvis recorded the song on September 29th, 1966. He reportedly despised it. He knew it was a joke. He was 31 years old. The Beatles had just released Revolver. The Beach Boys had just released Pet Sounds. The world of music was undergoing a profound and exciting transformation. And Elvis Presley was in a studio singing a dumb song about yoga with the Bride of Frankenstein. In the movie, Elvis plays a Navy frogman who discovers treasure. Elsa Lanchester plays a yoga instructor. The scene features Elvis and Lanchester singing the duet in a yoga studio surrounded by people in strange poses. The scene is played for laughs, but it is deeply unfunny. It is just awkward and embarrassing. Elvis looks stiff and uncomfortable. His heart is clearly not in it. Yoga Is As Yoga Does is more than just a bad song. It represents a total disconnect between Elvis and the contemporary culture. The song tries to mock the counterculture, but it just makes Elvis seem old and out of touch. He had gone from being the leader of the youth rebellion to making fun of the new youth rebellion. It was a sad and ironic turn of events. The story behind this song is about an artist's complete loss of control. By this point, Elvis had essentially given up fighting. He would show up, record the songs he was told to record, and film the scenes he was told to film. He was well paid, but he was artistically dead. This song is the proof. The movie Easy Come, Easy Go is another forgettable B movie from his weakest period. But the story of Yoga Is As Yoga Does is a chilling tale of artistic capitulation. It's the sound of one of the greatest singers of the 20th century hitting rock bottom. It's wilder than the film because it's a document of a low point so profound that it would take a miracle, the 68 comeback special, to recover from it. Number 5, why did Elvis sing a song to a bull? The movie was Stay Away, Joe, released in 1968. It was a Western comedy in which Elvis played a Navajo rodeo rider named Joe Lightcloud. The film was criticized for its clumsy portrayal of Native American life. The soundtrack was mostly forgettable, but one song stands out for its sheer absurdity. The song is called Dominic. Elvis sings it to a prize-winning breeding bull. The song was written by Sid Tepper and Roy C. Bennett. They were veteran songwriters who had written many songs for Elvis's movies. The song Dominic is a gentle lullaby-like tune. The lyrics are addressed to the bull. Dominic, sleep my love. Don't you know you've got a job to do tomorrow? A job of spreading joy to cows all over the valley. It is, without question, one of the strangest songs ever recorded by a major artist. The recording session took place on October 1st, 1967. Elvis was in a bad place creatively. He was just coming off the disastrous clam bake and was only a few months away from the career-saving 68 special. But at this moment, he was still stuck in the movie grind. He had to sing a song to a bull. In the movie, the scene is meant to be a comedic highlight. Joe's family has been given a prize bull, Dominic, by the government. Their hope is that the bull will breed with their cows and help them build a successful ranch. Joe sings the song to the bull too, apparently get him in the mood for his important task. The scene is played for laughs, but like much of the film's humor, it falls flat. It is just bizarre. Dominic is a symbol of how far the mighty had fallen. This is the man who snarled his way through Jailhouse Rock. This is the man whose smoldering performance of Love Me Tender made millions of fans swoon. Now he was serenading livestock. It was a clear sign that the writers and producers of his films had completely run out of ideas. They were just throwing anything at the wall to see what would stick. The story of Dominic is wilder than the movie because it is so surreal. It is a perfect encapsulation of the absurdity of Elvis's late 1960s film career. The plots made no sense. The songs were often disconnected from any recognizable human emotion. It was a world where singing a love song to a bull seemed like a reasonable plot point. For Elvis, it must have been another soul-crushing day at work, but he was a professional. He showed up and did the job. He sang the song with as much sincerity as he could muster, but this kind of material was what drove him away from Hollywood for good. He knew he was better than this. He knew he deserved better songs. Soon, he would prove it to the world. But first, he had to sing to Dominic the Bull. Number 4, could the titles get any worse? Yes, they could. The song title is There's No Room to Rumba in a Sports Car. It is not a joke. It is a real song recorded by Elvis Presley for the 1963 film Fun in Acapulco. The title alone tells you everything you need to know about the state of the songwriting for Elvis's movies at this time. The focus was on novelty and gimmicks, not on quality. The song was written by Fred Wise and Jesse Glick. It is an upbeat Latin-flavored number. The lyrics are about the logistical problems of trying to dance in a small, confined space. You can't do a tango in a phone booth built for one. You can't do a cha-cha on a crowded bus, my son. The premise is paper thin. The lyrics are silly. The song is the definition of filler material. Elvis recorded the song on January 23rd, 1963 at Radio Recorders. He sounds like he's having a bit of fun with it. He was always a professional and could find the joy in even the silliest material. But the song itself is pure fluff. It's a throwaway track designed to fill out a soundtrack album. The song is used in a scene in Fun in Acapulco where Elvis and his love interest are driving in a sports car. The song plays on the radio. It is a brief, forgettable moment in a brief, forgettable film. The movie itself was a typical travelogue designed to put Elvis in an exotic setting. He plays a former trapeze artist who is now working as a lifeguard and singer in Acapulco. The title, There's No Room to Rumba in a Sports Car, has become a kind of shorthand for the absurdity of Elvis's movie soundtrack songs. It is often cited as an example of the terrible material he was forced to record. It competes with other terrible titles like The Bullfighter Was a Lady and Song of the Shrimp for the prize of the most ridiculous Elvis song. The story behind the song is not one of high drama or conflict. It is a story of creative laziness. It is the story of a music publishing machine that had to churn out a dozen songs for every movie 3 times a year. The quality control was non-existent. The goal was simply to fill the soundtrack album with enough tracks to justify selling it to the fans. This song, and others like it, did long-term damage to Elvis's reputation as a serious artist. While his contemporaries were pushing the boundaries of music, he was singing songs with titles that sounded like they were generated by a computer. The film is a colorful distraction. The story of the song is a sadder tale about the triumph of quantity over quality and the slow erosion of a great artist's credibility. Number 3, did Elvis really sing from the perspective of a crustacean? He did. The song is Song of the Shrimp. It appeared in the 1962 movie Girls, Girls, Girls. In the song, Elvis provides the voice for a shrimp who is about to be caught and eaten. The shrimp sings a sad lament about his fate. It is one of the most surreal and bizarre moments in the entire Elvis Presley catalog. The song was written by Sid Tepper and Royce Bennett. It is a calypso-style novelty song. The lyrics are sung from the shrimp's point of view. I was a shrimp, a lonely shrimp. Nobody want to play with me. I was a shrimp, a lonely shrimp. Until the day a man looked down and he said to me, I'm gonna make you the star of my salad. The song ends with the shrimp being boiled. Elvis recorded the song on March 28, 1962. His performance is surprisingly quite good. He sings it with a light touch and a bit of humor. He adopts a slight Caribbean accent for the song. He commits to the ridiculous premise, but the fact that he had to record this song at all is a testament to the strange demands of his movie career. In the movie, Elvis's character, a fishing guide named Ross Carpenter, sings the song on his boat. He sings it to a group of children. It is another example of the Elvis sings to cute kids trope that was common in his films. The scene is meant to be whimsical and charming. For many viewers, it is simply baffling. Song of the Shrimp is often held up as a prime example of the bad material Elvis was forced to record. It's a long way from the raw power of Heartbreak Hotel to the silly novelty of Song of the Shrimp. And it shows how the studios and Colonel Parker were trying to sand down all of Elvis's rough edges. They wanted to make him a family-friendly entertainer suitable for all audiences. The rebellious rock and roller had been replaced by a man who sang cartoonish songs about seafood. The story behind Song of the Shrimp is wilder than the movie because it is so hard to believe it even happened. It's a story that perfectly illustrates the creative desert that was Elvis's movie career in the 1960s. The movie is a standard issue musical comedy. The song is a journey into the absurd. It's a document of a time when one of the world's biggest music stars was asked to give voice to the inner thoughts of a doomed crustacean. It's a strange, sad, and darkly funny chapter in the Elvis Presley story. Number 2 was this song about incest. The title is certainly provocative. The song is Hissin' Cousins. It was the title song for the 1964 film of the same name. In the movie, Elvis plays a dual role. He plays Josh Morgan, an Air Force officer, and Jody Tatum, his identical-looking distant cousin who lives in the Smoky Mountains. The plot involves the Air Force trying to convince the Tatum family to let them build a missile base on their land. Josh is sent to persuade his hillbilly relatives. A lot of romantic confusion ensues. The title and the plot certainly raise some eyebrows. The song itself, however, is not about incest. It's a goofy, upbeat, country-flavored novelty song. It was written by Fred Wise and Randy Starr. The lyrics try to explain that while they may look alike and share a family tree, the kissing is perfectly fine. Yes, we're kissing cousins. That is what we are. And we'll be kissing cousins, whether near or far. But if you're a third cousin or a fourth or fifth or so, you are much too far away to be my little lovin' beau. The lyrics are clumsy, and the logic is strained. Elvis recorded the song on September 29, 1963. The soundtrack for Kissin' Cousins was recorded in a marathon 2-day session. It was done on the cheap. The budget for the movie was very low, and the music budget was even lower. The songs were churned out quickly. Elvis sounds unenthusiastic on the recording. He's just getting the job done. The movie and the song represent a new level of cheapness in Elvis's film career. The film was shot in just a few weeks. The sets look flimsy. The script is terrible. Elvis wears a ridiculous blonde wig to play his cousin Jody. The whole production feels rushed and cynical. It was about making a profit with the minimum possible investment. The song Kissin' Cousins is the perfect theme for this cheap production. It's a silly song for a silly movie. The provocative title was likely just a marketing gimmick, a way to get people's attention. The controversy, such as it was manufactured. The story behind Kissin' Cousins is not about a shocking taboo. It's about something more mundane, but also more damaging to Elvis's career, the relentless drive for profit at the expense of quality. The movie is a poorly made comedy. The story of the song is a story about the Elvis movie machine at its most efficient and most soulless. It's a tale of low budgets, tight schedules, and a star who was visibly losing interest in the product he was being forced to create. It's wilder than the film because it shows the grim reality behind the goofy on-screen fantasy. Number one, how did a forgotten movie song become a cry of rebellion? The song was Rubberneckin'. It was recorded in 1969 for Elvis's last dramatic film, Change of Habit. The movie starred Mary Tyler Moore as a nun working in the inner city. Elvis played a doctor. The film was an attempt to be more modern and socially relevant. The song was a funky, horn-driven track that got lost in a film that made very little impact. But the story of this song, like A Little Less Conversation, is one of resurrection and reinvention. Rubberneckin' was written by Dory Jones and Bunny Warren. It's a solid piece of late 60s funk rock. The lyrics are about people watching from a car. Stop, look, and listen, baby. That's my philosophy. It's called Rubberneckin', baby, but that's all right with me. The song has a great groove. It was recorded on January 20th, 1969 at American Sound Studio in Memphis. This was a crucial time for Elvis. He had just completed the 68 comeback special. He was recording the legendary sessions that would produce hits like Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto. He was creatively on fire. The recording of Rubberneckin' from these sessions is fantastic. It's loose, funky, and full of energy. Elvis's voice is powerful. The band, the famed Memphis Boys, is incredibly tight. It was a great song recorded during a great period, but then it was stuck in the movie, Change of Habit. The film was a box office disappointment. The song was released as the B-side to Don't Cry Daddy. It didn't get much attention. It was just another movie song, albeit a very good one, that faded into obscurity. However, Elvis had also recorded a version of it for his 68 comeback special. The performance was not used in the final broadcast, but it shows that he liked the song and saw its potential. He saw it as part of his new, modern sound. For decades, Rubberneckin' was a deep cut, known mostly to dedicated fans. It was a hidden gem from his late career renaissance. But then, in 2003, following the massive success of the A Little Less Conversation remix, RCA decided to try the same formula again. They commissioned the British DJ Paul Oakenfold to remix Rubberneckin'. Oakenfold took Elvis's powerful vocal from the 1969 master recording. He built a new, modern electronic dance track around it. The remix was released as a single. It was a hit. It went top 10 in the UK and Australia. It was used in commercials and movies. Once again, a forgotten Elvis movie song had been brought back to life for a new generation. The story of Rubberneckin' is wilder than the movie it came from. Change of Habit is a dated curiosity. The story of the song is a tale of artistic rebirth. It was recorded at the peak of Elvis's second wind, a moment when he broke free from the chains of Hollywood and started making vital, exciting music again. It was a song of rebellion against the years of bad movie soundtracks, and then more than 30 years later, it was reborn again, proving that the energy and power of Elvis's best performances are truly timeless. It's a story that starts in a recording studio in Memphis, gets lost in a forgotten movie, and ends on dance floors around the world.